Hi, welcome to Ask the Manager. We have a little different format today. We have a guest that's going to come in on the second half of our show. And I have so many questions, you can just imagine. So let's get started. We're in the studio, and so there's going to be a town meeting, October 18th.
Correct.
I remember that because that was my first date with my husband, October 18th.
Wow.
So, and it's at 7 o'clock, and there's 12 articles.
12, yep.
So when you look at the articles, they look a little boring, but they're really not. They're really not, and they're all, like the first three are all relative.
Yep.
So
Yep.
why don't you tell us about the first article, which is about the insurance trust fund?
Sure. So what we're trying to do here is establish a way to kind of stabilize our insurance across all aspects of it. So property, liability, automobile, and our workers' comp and injured on duty, which is workers' compensation for police and fire. So over the past few years, we've transitioned from either low or no deductibles to a little bit higher deductibles. And the analysis that we did on that over the long run is that we would save money. But having deductibles, I either need to budget for the entire deductible or run a risk of not having enough money in any given fiscal year. So there's a general law that we can adopt that allows us to basically set up a stabilization or a trust fund where we can load money into there, use it when we have a deductible, but really take advantage of the savings and not have to over budget and turn money back in the general insurance line item every year. So it'll really hopefully stabilize us and in the long run save us money.
And how did you learn about this?
I've used it in other prior towns actually, and the town actually has one which had one in the past. It was set up for very limited purposes, which we're going to abolish and combine into this in Article 2. Yeah, I think it's just taking better advantage of this. Yep.
Good. I thought that was pretty smart. At first, like I said, I looked, I went, oh boy, this is a drag. But
Yep.
then when I looked closer, I realized that it was pretty good idea.
Yep.
So then we go to Article 4, and it's related to Centec Park and the sale of Centec Park.
Yes.
Which is the Allen property.
Is the Allen property, yep. So today's Thursday the 23rd, and there's a closing going on right now that we are finally selling that piece of property for $6.5 million in Northridge Development. And we intend to use the net proceeds from that sale to pay for the reconstruction of the Toblin Hill Bridge and some improvements to the interlocking wall along Nursery Drive, which was constructed in the early 90s by the same contractor that built the bridge. So that's obviously been a challenge for that neighborhood and a shame really since 2015 when it was closed, and then we demolished it in 2018. So Centec North, it's a finally, right? Like we've been waiting since 2001, 2002 to develop that property, and we finally have a good partner to do that. Selling it for $6.5 million. We have about $3.6 million in debt still left on it, so that'll be taken care of first. We have to pay a broker's fee of 6% because we went out to bid, and that was the most advantageous company that we could find. They've been very helpful, Colliers, in helping us find this partner. And then we have to pay Mass Development back a grant for about $418,000 because that was the deal if we ever found a buyer, and the master plan that was used and the sewer work that was put into the property helped us sell the property, so we're going to give the state the money back. And then we'll have a little over or about $2 million left. Most of it will go into the Toblin Hill and Nursery Drive neighborhood.
And what did we purchase the property for?
We purchased the property for $6.5 million. And over time, it's become less developable, just given the nature of letting it set fallow, and wetlands have increased and things like, which normally happen over time. We finally financed $6.1 million in 2011. So, I think we've done a good job at selling it and getting all the money back.
And what will we get for revenue once the property is developed?
That's a really good question. I know that at the closing is estimated the taxes that will be due for the rest of the fiscal year is $82,000. So there we go right away. So for 3/4 of the year, $80,000, so it's a little over $100,000 just for the land. And then whatever the improvements are, I would imagine that would at least double it. So we're probably talking in the neighborhood of $200,000 a year being back on the tax rolls, if not more.
So we accomplished what we wanted with the property. We didn't lose money.
Correct.
We're breaking even.
Yep.
And of course, you spend the money right away because you know you have projects that need the financing. And then we know we're going to be getting tax revenue.
Correct.
And that's what we want.
Yeah.
And that was the goal in the first place, was to have that be developed as a business, not housing. Right. So we accomplished, we're in the process of accomplishing what we set out to do. How many years ago?
2002, so almost 20.
Can you imagine that?
And those proceeds, just for everyone's information, we can't use them on just anything. They can only be used on a state law provides they can only be used on a project for which you can borrow for greater than 5 years. So even if we wanted to, do little things here and there, if you're not able to borrow for something that has a lifespan of at least 5 years, we couldn't use it. So that's why we figured that this was the best investment. Obviously, it's a huge need for the community, but it also just lines up really well with our limitations under state law.
So congratulations in getting that done, and we can stop talking about the Allen property and just the revenue. And then Article 5 is replacing windows at Oak Middle School, which we've talked about on other shows. And the reason being is that those windows were never replaced with the project several years ago.
Correct.
And they certainly need to be done. Now, am I to understand that MSBA, they change the letters all the time, but MSBA may reimburse us some?
Well, that's what the language says, but yeah, so this is part of the MSBA Accelerated Repair Program. So they have two main programs. One is the new construction work that's done like we use for Beale, and then the other program is called the Accelerated Repair Program. It's for repairs and improvements to properties that are over 25 years old. So they will, if we make it through that process, which we're just seeking funding for the schematic design, which is pretty easy for windows, but you need a architect and engineer to come up with the plans for that. So we are in the category of another 52% reimbursement from MSBA. So yes, they've engaged with us on it. It'll be considered at their October 27th meeting, so a couple days after town meeting. We have no reason to anticipate that we wouldn't be part of that program. So that's why we wrote the article that way.
So things are rolling along. Projects. And then the Article 6 is interesting. It's about statutory exemption for real estate that's domicile of a person but is owned by a trustee, a conservator, or other fiduciary for the person's benefit.
Yeah, so
blah, blah. What's that?
Yeah, so it's really an enhancement to our tax exemption program through the assessor's office. You'll recall when we were going through the override process, the Board of Selectmen committed to ensuring that every option that was available to residents for tax exemptions and abatements was properly put in place and taken advantage of. And our new assessor, Ruth Anderson, discovered that we hadn't accepted this updated version of the law, which broadens the eligibility for individuals to get a tax exemption. So we'll accept this part of the general law, and it will allow those residents within that category to be able to receive a tax benefit over their tax bill.
And then the next one's about the stabilization. We're stabilizing everywhere.
That's right.
For the town sewer.
That's right. So,
which that really makes sense. I'm surprised we don't have that yet.
Yeah, well, so we are setting up individual stabilization accounts for the various utilities. We did water last spring or 2 springs ago at this point, and actually last fall, I'm sorry. Who knows? At this
Time
point.
flies.
Right, exactly. We're doing that for the sewer here. And we're setting up this special purpose stabilization fund where we'll take excess sewer revenue and put it in an account in case we have a major capital improvement project, whether that be emergency in the near term or something that we can plan for in the longer run, and help keep the rates as normal and stable as possible over time.
And so this is a lot of planning. This is really in anticipation of, and it protects the town from having to
Right.
dig into tax money that we need every year.
Right. We have, I mean, you know, a lot of sewer infrastructure, of course, as one could imagine, over 130 miles of sewer mains. And some of those, you know, even like we have a main in Maple Avenue that is quite old and it's 30 inches. And if we ever, you know, in an emergency situation had to replace that, you're talking tens of millions of dollars. So we really need to have reserves on hand to be able to manage a situation. And I think it's something like 80% of the town's normal sewer flows on an average day goes through that one main. So it's not like we could wait around for 3 months and think about what we wanted to do. We would have to act.
So good planning. And then we get into zoning. The first Article 9 is about the limited commercial district along Lake Street. What's that about?
Yeah, so I think 3 of the zoning articles, with all due respect to our wonderful planning staff, are a little boring, like you said. And this one is
Not
really,
to them.
yeah, this is a minor change, really because we realigned Lake Street with regards, or when we were constructing the Beale School. So this really kind of squares off that zoning district and, you know, eliminates having a area that's kind of unzoned or improperly zoned. It makes it consistent with the residential B1 district.
So it's cleanup.
Yeah, it's clean. It cleans it up.
And then now this one caught my eye with the restaurant, indoor and outdoor dining. But it gives a lot of the responsibility to, is it the planning board? Why?
Well, so putting it into so what we're doing actually is making dining and outdoor dining a use of right in more districts. So it actually expands people's opportunity to site restaurants and have outdoor dining, and this is really a learning experience from COVID whenever there is special legislation put in place at the state level. So it's a really low bar to meet, but it's just overseen within the planning board, planning department area. So it won't be a burdensome opportunity. They'll just, you know, process everything through the planning board. And again, it'll give more opportunities for people to site restaurants and have outdoor dining where those restaurants occur.
Have we had any problems with outdoor dining?
Nope.
Not at all, right?
No.
And people are so happy to be out there. The one thing I would like to see regulated, and I don't know that I see it in Shrewsbury, but when someone suddenly decides to have outdoor dining, which was sudden, of course, with COVID, and they use pallets to box in the area, I think it's important to always be sure that regulatory-wise they have what looks like a finished product. It's not just haphazard. It doesn't look like, you know, the real McCoys did it, but that.
Right, this will give us a little bit more oversight on
that.
those types of things.
So that'll be interesting in the zoning world. And then now, going from wireless telecommunication towers to small wireless facility, is that just language changes really, or?
It is, and it puts us more in line with our obligations under federal law. We can't have zoning that's inconsistent with Federal Communications Act, and this really brings us into using that more modern language in alignment with regards to those types of facilities. We could be challenged if we didn't update our bylaws because we can't be inconsistent. So that's all that is really, is a cleanup and making it come into compliance.
And I give the department a lot of credit for actually going through and making sure. It's like the dread of going through and updating your policies. It's kind of like the same thing. It's like, just get them right. And so hopefully there won't be tons of discussion. It's like everybody will agree, yeah, that's a good idea, and we'll just move forward. And then what's this inclusionary housing?
So whenever we created the town center zoning district, we failed to include it as a district within our inclusionary housing bylaw, which is the affordable housing bylaw. So this adds it into that section, the town center, and ensures that any multifamily developments have at least 12.5% as affordable housing. So it makes it consistent with all the residential zoning districts and mixed-use zoning districts in the community.
Oh. Okay, now, why do residents pay more than commercial for water and sewer?
I would argue that most don't. But I don't know if there's a second part of the question or clarity. So our water rates are set up based upon meter size. And so if a resident has a 1-inch meter, and a business has a 1-inch meter, which is very conventional for a residence and a small business, then they're paying the same. Now, if you go into a larger commercial environment where they may have up to a 4 or 5-inch meter or a 6-inch meter for that matter, then they're paying a much higher monthly base fee. And then their water consumption is obviously a lot greater, so they get into those higher usage bands much quicker than a resident. So it's consistent across the board because we are trying to tie our rates to our actual costs.
Now, I get it, but selectmen wanted us to pay attention to our water usage by raising rates and doing things to make us use less water.
Mm-hmm.
Have they done that with businesses? Have they set things in place so that businesses try to conserve water? Because if they have a cheaper rate,
yeah,
what the heck?
So I don't think they do have a cheaper rate. They have the same rate, and often based upon meter size, they have a higher rate.
Yeah.
And the other thing that we do with our highest water consumers, which most of them are businesses, is our top 10%, we make contact with them every year and encourage and provide opportunities to reduce their usage. So I think that we are. I think that there's not any incentive to more incentive for the commercial user than the residential user. Yeah.
Okay. We've had so many water breaks and sewer breaks, which our infrastructure is older, and we're going to see more as time goes on.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it is because we're touching valves that weren't touched in a long time, but not all of it.
Mm-hmm.
So are we seeing, or is it just that it's brought to our attention more?
Yeah, I think we're doing a better job of communicating it to residents. It's been very consistent. I actually think this summer has been a little less than the previous year. We had have some larger impact areas, like on North Quincy a couple weeks ago. That was a major break that the volume of water going through that main caused a lot of road damage. But this is part of infrastructure that's getting over 50 years old, and sometimes the circumstances that we find, whether it's a larger pipe going into a smaller pipe or various reasons where two lines connect, that there's weak spots and we do have to fix them. But yesterday we had one on Sherwood Avenue, and that was actually a result of our leak detection company being in town, identifying a leak. So it wasn't really a break, but they could hear that it was leaking, and we went out there and more proactively fixed it. So we are trying to be much more proactive in how we communicate. Even whenever I got here, wasn't that long ago, but I would find out about a water main break a few days later, but I find out.
Now you can look on the website.
Yeah, well, I find out 15 or 20 minutes after
Right.
they really determine. So it's good. It may it's part of every water system. We have breaks. Every city and town deals with that, but yeah, we're trying to be very proactive with folks.
Do we have enough staffing to cover all these breaks?
Yeah, we never really have a challenge. We always have a dedicated crew that responds and comes in and is able to work those extra hours. We did put 2 additional water positions in the budget this year, and we're in the process of filling them right now. So yeah, we're getting better. On the water side, we have over 206 miles of main, so it is a big territory to cover, but we do a good job at it. Yeah.
Good. And what's the progress of the leak team? Obviously, they earn their money on Sherwood, but what's the progress there?
Yeah, I mean, they do a lot of things for us. They've identified over the past few years issues with hydrants and actual leaks in the field. It's a part of our DEP obligations, so they're required to be out there in the field. They are rather effective and have identified some pretty sizable issues for us to tackle over the past years. But it's something that we'll continue to do every year. Again, it's a large territory to cover and follow, but, so we have them come through. And relatively speaking, on an average year, we spend about $7.5 million, on water maintenance, the plant, treatment, all those things related to water, and it costs us less than $50,000 for the leak detection company, so it's not a big piece of the pie of what we're spending.
Good. Now, Old Beale. There's Old Beale and New Beale. Old Beale, is there progress there with
There is a lot of
building?
progress behind the scenes. We're still in kind of active negotiations with the respondent to the RFP. And I think it's at a position where the Board of Selectmen is going to make a decision, really one way or another, and I don't know yet. It really depends on this last round of negotiations, which is occurring over the next 3 to 4 weeks with the company, of kind of a go or no go. Do we think they're the right partner or do we not? So we last met with them 2 Fridays ago and had a really productive conversation about the town's expectations and what we wanted to see. And it'll become more public in the future, away from my office and more into the Board of Selectmen's hands.
Well, I think the decisions made at Beale will be big decisions and very in the face of the residents. So I think that the selectmen and you have to make really thoughtful decisions to make sure it's the right fit for that property, traffic, and how it impacts the neighborhoods and all of those things. And it could be very exciting, so hopefully it is.
Yeah, it's an interesting process, right? Because there's so many facets to the Board of Selectmen's decision-making process. If you or I owned that parcel of land, we would kind of go out and say, okay, who's going to give me the most money, right? But since it's the town, it's like we're going to sell the property and then be judged about how someone else is going to develop it, right? So that makes the process really tricky. And of course, the board has this appropriate emotional connection to who's going to develop it and what's going to be there because of those things. It's going to be in the residents' face. We want to see it as a catalyst in the town center. It'll be a very important project. So it's one of those unique situations where, we could potentially sign our names to sell the property. And in most circumstances, you're off to Florida with your check. But here, we're still here, we're watching it every day, and we're going to be judged, and it's not even going to be our property any longer. So it's a very dynamic and interesting process to go through.
And it will be a turning point for the center of town, because I call it Shrewsbury Center, but for some reason people call it the town center. So call it what you want. I can't even comprehend, other than the wider sidewalk, I can't comprehend that that's going to get any more exciting than it is. I hope it is, but I can't understand how, because of parking, because of all the impacts to it being a congested area, traffic trying to get through at rush hour. I'm hopeful for it, but it's really hard for me to comprehend what's really going to happen there. So hopefully behind the scenes there are people that are really good at that, because they're trying to make it robust, but yet not so robust that it impacts the neighborhood, not so robust that it impacts traffic.
Yeah, and that's another interesting planning conversation to have, is that, if that were to be turned into a single-use commercial facility, pick your single-use CVS, right? You're going to have, on the course of an average day, like 1,000 car trips or 500 car trips, where if it's a residential, has a key, mostly residential, you may have 2 trips, right, per residence, or 3 trips per residence. At 50, you're still only at 150 trips versus 500 trips. But then you also hopefully have enough attractiveness and other amenities in the town center, restaurants, other shopping opportunities, the library, the post office is there, that their car trips are even less. So while we may be putting more humans in the area, hopefully that doesn't equate to the number of car trips that people may think. Like, it's clear that a pharmacy would have a lot more congestion and traffic associated with it, in comparison to that type of apartment community. So it seems in some ways it's counterintuitive, but it's really true, right? You're putting more people there and encouraging them to be, use their vehicle less and be more present and get their services right in that one area. And we've got a lot of work to do to grow the rest of the center, but that's how a mixed-use development can really be less impactful than a single-use commercial site.
And the sidewalk is wider. Can't park in front of the pizzeria.
That's
Can't
right.
park in front of those stores anymore. People still try to so far, but they'll learn that they can't. But I think the wider sidewalk will make that more attractive too.
Yeah.
And it's safer for pedestrians.
Yep. And hopefully it enables, Amici's and Willie's to have outside dining and build the vibrancy, allow for more interaction with the other businesses. Earlier this week, the building permit was issued for the entire Hale Block building. So renovations will get away in earnest now with the new owner of that property. So that's a very important milestone for us as well, and bring some more vibrancy, more apartments and more businesses into the town center. So we reduced a curb cut there, so there'll be one entrance into the bank. We're going to use the old Beal site in the interim until we redevelop it for more open public parking. So, we did lose 7 spaces, 9 spaces there in the area, but we'll provide that parking at Beal, a little bit longer walk, yes. We think the sidewalks is the long-term way to go in the area, and we're also encouraging businesses in the area to develop shared parking arrangements. That's permissible in our zoning now. So we are really taking the first steps to do some transformational things.
And we did get funding from the state for the signs.
Yeah,
The Wayfinder.
The wayfinding signs, yep, the Board of Selectmen's actually going to consider a few final details and including locations for them. We've received those funds and we'll be moving forward.
Just under 49,000.
Yep.
And New Beal came in under budget.
Yes. That's a $92 million building, right? That was the price tag that was put on it. Of course, we know that the state was kicking in a significant grant. So at the beginning of the project, I think we borrowed 92% of what we expected to have to borrow, which was about $55.7 million. And we don't have to borrow anymore, that boggles my mind. You see that property and that site and all the work that went into it, knowing that we borrowed that amount of money, that percentage of money, and that's what, the asset that we're walking away with it's really amazing. And I don't have the final numbers of what funds will be available once the project's all done. It'll be rather narrow, but again, we didn't borrow what we anticipated having to borrow.
And COVID numbers are going up.
Yeah, COVID numbers are going up. We made some changes in the town as far as what staff is able to do, because we've had some cases and scares and close contacts within the town hall. So we ramped back activities a little bit. Residents are still welcome in the town hall, have to be masked. Hopefully, we're hearing nationally now that the numbers plateaued, maybe going down a little bit. California's doing really good. Lowest positive percentage there in quite some time. So hopefully we're just lagging behind that and we get there really quickly.
It seems that with this spike in different parts of the country, it goes up fast, but it comes down fast too, compared to the first round. So hopefully we're getting to our plateau.
Yes.
I don't know what the numbers are this week, but
the numbers have been a little bit more promising this week. Many days last week, we were in the teens, and I haven't seen any double digits yet so far this week. And it's Thursday.
Hopefully we're on our way down.
Yep.
School buses, don't they have to follow the speed limit through neighborhoods?
Of course they do.
Holy Toledo, they really move through the neighborhoods. Enough on that. Council on Aging, busy?
Yeah.
Very busy.
Yep, I'm doing a lot of activities there. Building vibrancy back in the building and having more programming, so getting back to what used to be normal and hopefully beyond that. So Holly Luke, who's the COA director, really, came on board in late 2019, so she hasn't been able to get her full footing under her in normal circumstances. So a lot of that you're seeing is because of her invigorated efforts into that center.
She's done an awful lot, even though it's been extreme circumstances.
Right.
Now, the police station groundbreaking, if anyone hasn't driven on Maple Ave, you can't miss the wide open spaces.
Mm-hmm.
The groundbreaking ceremony was very nice. One thing that stood out to me that I really liked was the speakers all showed the same kind of pride I have in the town and in the police station and everything about it. They were very, very proud of the town.
Mm-hmm.
And they, like Lieutenant Governor and our state rep, they see other communities around the state and can flaunt that we have such a good town. And they let that be known, which I thought was very nice. And it was something really positive. There was something really positive about that ceremony to me. So a lot of work's being done. They were already pouring
they're pouring the foundation, the footers, and the various where the main structural pillars are going to go and everything. And again, just like Beal, we have a great partner across all aspects, our architect and our OPM, but we have Fontaine as our construction manager, and they're putting us in a really good situation timing-wise to get the foundations in so we can do the steel work in the winter, right? So that can be done, throughout the course of this first winter, and it'll take a long time, but it's the right timing to go through a winter. We don't have to have it closed in. It doesn't need to be closed in. But it's just lining up really well and moving forward. Despite, we've had a lot of rain, but they've persevered and managed the site very well.
Now, I don't know if I heard this correctly, and I haven't had time to look it up, so I'll just ask you. Mary Thompson has a new title?
She does, yep. She is Assistant Town Manager for Administration and Finance. Promotion, new title. That's part of the overall kind of the final piece of the big reorganization that we've done. For me personally, whenever I started, as you know, Donna, I had 16 department heads that reported directly to me. And now with this position, that takes the number down to 6 different, direct reports. So much easier span of control. All 6 of those individuals have complete responsibility for the rest of the organization, so other department heads report to them. And we'll be backfilling the town accountant's position within the coming weeks or months, whatever that takes. So we're starting that search process right now. And well deserved for Mary. Of course, she's been with the town since 1988 and obviously not only put in a lot of time, but has helped the town tremendously during that time.
I think Mary in that position as the first person in that role is good because she has so much historical knowledge over so many years with the town. And I think that was a really good decision because there's so much that goes on financially, and to have someone with just their eyes on that. The town accountant's position for me as a town manager is so important. It's really my internal auditor, and they're kind of ensuring that all the transaction are legally sound and fiscally responsible. So this also gives us the opportunity. Mary intends to retire about a year from now. It'll give us a whole year for a warm blanket for me, with Mary helping train the new town accountant. Our financial system is much more complex than a lot of other, smaller towns in the area. Hopefully we have someone with good municipal or private sector experience, but regardless, Mary will be able to bridge that gap, whatever that person's experience is. And then Mary retiring, you'll still have someone in that position.
Correct. Yep.
So it'll have to be someone who comes with a wealth of knowledge on town finances.
Correct.
And that person ends up being at all those finance committee meetings, and which is good for you because you'll have 2 heads, which I think is very helpful. And what's happening with the auto excise tax? Is it up? I mean,
No.
you can't get cars, so how does that impact the
Our
town?
revenue. So I think
Right.
we hit our budget mark just a little bit over last fiscal year, which I was happy about because it was actually lagging the whole way through June, which isn't common. We normally hit that number in April or May at the latest of any given year. We are conservative in our budgeting going into fiscal year 22. But if we're able to achieve what we achieved in fiscal year 21 this year, I'll be really happy. You know, it's the largest single aspect of our local receipts. About 6.4 million was collected. But yeah, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see. Was fiscal year 21 actually better than 22 in the car market because of the supply chain issues and things like that?
Right. So time is up for just us, and we do have a guest coming in, so we're going to take a break, and we'll be back with you shortly. Welcome back. We have our guest here today, and it's Peter Collins, who is Chair of the Lake Quinsigamon Commission. We would have liked to have done this on the boat, but due to the rainy season, we have not been able to manage that. So welcome, Peter. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Now, you have a committee, and I'm just going to name off who's on it. You have Captain DeAndrea, Worcester PD,
Yes.
Sergeant Michael Vitolis of Shrewsbury.
Fidos, yeah.
Fidos,
Yep.
Shrewsbury PD. Amanda Armory of Worcester Conservation Rep, and Kenny Polito, who's the Shrewsbury Conservation Rep. Jonathan Nickerson, Grafton Conservation Rep. Michael Pica, Shrewsbury resident. Lisa Labossiere, Worcester resident. And Bill Nelson, Grafton resident. So it's a good-sized committee, and it seems that you have decent attendance, too.
Yeah, we are, from the committee standpoint, this has been the best last couple of years. There's nine members on the committee, so there was times in the past where we wouldn't have a quorum because we didn't have all the
Right.
seats filled anyway, and then some would be out for whatever reason. So this has been really good, and I'm really happy that we have a lot of participation. There's a lot of chipping in, and people are doing their stuff. The Worcester rep and the Grafton rep, and the Grafton rep got us through a CPA grant that got us like $17,000 to do a study in Flint Pond, and he shepherded that through, which it wasn't, as you know, it's an easy task to pull off.
Right.
So, yeah.
And speaking of that, you had issues with invasive plant species that were treated on not just the lake, but other areas also.
Yeah, we
Sewell Pond?
no, we haven't got the Sewell yet. We're at Newton Pond.
Newton Pond.
Newton Pond's in
Actually-
Shrewsbury, mostly in Shrewsbury.
The name flips. It depends who you're talking to.
Right.
It's on Sewell Street.
It's on
Newton
Sewell
Pond.
Street. Yeah, it's Newton Pond. I get confused all the time too, so don't feel bad. We kind of took that under our wing because we're kind of in the treatment of the invasive species business, so it just seemed to be a better economies of scale, and so we took that over. We did a treatment this year. They were very, very happy about that. But that's also in Boylston, so it took us a little while longer than we wanted because we had to go through the conservation.
But most of it's in
Issues.
Shrewsbury.
Most of it's in Shrewsbury.
Right.
And actually, I think most of the treatment we did was in Shrewsbury this time. So
And when you do that treatment, it's no swimming, no fishing for 3 to 5 days,
it
something like that.
depends on which application we use. In this particular application that we used, I think it was a 48-hour. Don't let your pets drink the water. Don't swim in it. It's really the stuff we're using isn't very harmful to humans.
But it did get rid of the weeds. It really.
It did. It was late.
Quickly.
It was a little late in the season, but yeah, it basically wipes them out. That particular plant is a fragment spread. So what this does is this is a kind of a topical application where it just goes on top of the leaves and just disintegrates it. So the pond looks like kale soup for a couple of days, and then it all settles to the bottom.
And then on top of that, you do a drawdown on the lake?
On the lake proper, Newton Pond, we're still going through the permitting process to do a drawdown. We'd like to do that there. Newton Pond's a perfect candidate because of the depth of it. It's very shallow, and we think we can get a lot of it just doing that. And always, drawdowns are tricky and environmentally tricky, but they're still I think, a better solution than a chemical solution anytime. But yeah, we do one on Lake Quinsigamon, and it really helps out in our really highly infested areas, which is Flint Pond, which is a shallow place. So some of the the bigger parts of the lake, it's basically a donut effect because the lake's 65 feet, 70 feet deep. So we only can draw down physically because that's all the dam we have.
But does that
30
help
inches.
the people with walls and so forth to be able to get some repairs done also?
It absolutely does help that, but that's not something you want to put in your application when you go in front of the state, because they go like, well, we don't care anything about that. All we care
Yeah.
about is the environment and the lake,
Yeah.
and so they're very focused on that. I made that mistake once. That's how I know. But
Oh.
they,
Erase that.
yeah, it's okay. It's a lesson learned. And but it is environmentally sound.
When do you do the drawdown?
We start the drawdown at October 31st, so we can't start before that. So I'm sorry, we can't start till after October 31st. So typically it's the 1st or 2nd of November, whatever day falls in line with the weekday. And because the DCR dam guys go down to the Irish Dam, and they actually physically control the height of the dam, which is all mechanical. That's very nice. Versus Newton, which is that's manual. You have to take the logs out.
Which they did have a neighbor do once.
Yes, they did. He stole them. He made the
that
mistake of
got
keeping them in the
corrected.
back of his truck. So that wasn't a good idea, but yeah, that went down. And the lake went down considerably.
And you had a no-wake order
Twice.
because of the level of the lake, the level.
Right.
And how long did that last?
The first one was a little bit over, I think it was 7 days. That one came down. It receded really slowly only because we kept getting rain.
So did the neighbors, were they happy because they had no wake, so they didn't have all the maniacs out there
50-50.
for a few days?
'Cause some of the neighbors are the maniacs, so they're I respectfully.
Respectfully.
But and I've had my day out there, sure, making wakes, but the no wake zone was basically put in place to keep the shoreline, help the walls, help all the other stuff, the docks, all the other things going on. So it was really a 50-50 thing. That some of the neighbors were really appreciative of it and happy, and some of them weren't because they couldn't go out and do what they like to do, which is water skiing and wakeboarding and things like that.
So
The
they
jet
couldn't
skis.
ski at all?
No, you couldn't make a wake. So
Oh.
basically a wake, the technical definition of it is you can't go over a headway speed, which is about 6 miles an hour. Anything that you can't go anything you can't, right till you can't steer anymore. Once you can't, you have to, a boat's not a car, so you have to have certain propulsion to steer it, especially a jet ski.
Do you know that?
But
Me neither.
But we 6 miles an hour is usually the speed, which is consistent with the speed under the bridges, and any place where there's an obstructed view. So that's kind of what we did. And I got people were concerned. I had the last one we did. Someone took a picture of a crew boat and a launch, and the crew launches are funny because there's these pontoon boats. They really don't make a wake. Like you can go, 10, 14 miles an hour in a thing, and it doesn't really leave a wake. And it's a crew. It was an 8-person shell, and they were tooling down the lake, obviously going faster than 6. And I get this picture in the thing, and the resident was complaining because these guys were breaking the speed limit. And they sent me a still picture, so all I see is 2 boats not making a wake. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, what's the problem? And they go, they're going faster than 6 miles an hour. I said, yeah, but they're not making a wake. So, which is really the spirit of it. We just didn't want people to, we want the shoreline to stay protected, and everyone's equipment to stay protected.
Now, docks are very regulated. Is that regulated through the state, the town, the Lake Quinsigamon Commission? Who regulates that?
Yes.
Well,
So today at Lake Quinsigamon, the Lake Quinsigamon Commission is essentially controlling the dock permits. The state has regulations in place called Chapter 91 regulations, which would have them do the dock. It doesn't change our authority to regulate docks, but our dock permits don't cover Chapter 91. Chapter 91 is kind of a separate thing, and they want their own set of criteria. Most of our rules are for docks are actually a little stricter than the states, especially in size and things like that, and where you can place them. But we're working with the DEP right now, that's who this is under, to go into a program which they call a local permitting program, where the Lake Michigan Commission will take over the local permitting for the Chapter 91 licenses. So we'll incorporate, kind of morph those into what we look for, and issue kind of a dual license, if you will.
Who can have a dock?
Any person with land abutting the lake.
Period.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah.
What do you mean? Somebody else can? What if I want a dock?
If you want a dock and you don't have land on the lake, you're in
Trouble, huh?
you're not in trouble. You're just out of luck. You're in trouble if you put one in, because it won't last long. But yeah, so you have to be a lake abutter. And what we ask now, and this is something we weren't so stringent with in the past, but we're going kind of more by the rules, especially because of Chapter 91, that the applicant go to the local conservation first. So you kind of go out there to either get a determination of applicability or an NOI, depending on what kind of plan you have to put a dock out there. And then you have to follow within our criteria that the dock can be 30 feet out and under I think it's 300 square feet and that kind of thing. So.
But I still don't have access to the lake.
You have access to the lake, you
How?
just can't put a boat on it.
How can I?
Well, you
how
can
can
go
I
out to the
access
boat
it?
ramps, you can go to the state parks.
So I can just like ride in or walk in and hang out at the boat ramp without a boat?
Not on the docks. Actually, not even on the boat ramp, but that's a state rule.
So where can I go?
Oh, I know where you can go. Oak Island.
Oh.
Yeah.
And is it safe over there?
It's safe. What do you mean, like?
Safe to be there?
Yes. Yeah.
I thought it wasn't.
It has a history of
Do you know the history?
Yeah,
sketchiness.
It is public property that you could access the lake from, and they've had nice big parties there at times.
Yeah.
No physical harm.
I got to say this about, because I live over there. Like I can see it from my house, and the parties were concerning.
Yes.
I'm beside it, so the music doesn't blare right in my face, and some of my neighbors are complaining because the music does blare in their face. But I will say this: that for the most part, especially since the town has we expanded our ramp kind of charges. We were charging at both the Flint Pond ramp and the Corzini ramp now, so we have attendants down there. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to do that. And they've basically put a porta potty up there. The latrine was the biggest problem I had
Really?
with the party system over there, because they had a latrine set up in the woods. So that wasn't cool. And we brought the Board of Health down there, and that agent, and he's like, we got to put a porta potty down here or something. So there's one down there now, and so that's kind of taking care of that problem. But those people they're basically families, and although I think we still need to keep.
Are they Shrewsbury families?
I don't think so. So
that's okay?
It's a state lake.
it's a state lake, and the park is open land. They haven't really been a real issue of a problem. And I will say this, that I think because they're down there, that there's less of a problem on the other side of it. It's not as attractive to go with the element that was going down there.
Because there's families there.
Because there's families down there, and it's kind of open, and people are using it. And we've always been a proponent, both myself and Brenda Lundgren, who's passed, always been a proponent of maybe making improvements at Oak Island and kind of taking it from, it's a park now, it's a Shrewsbury Park now, but it's passive recreation, I think. So
at the Cape, there are places at the Cape that I can't pull into that beach and park and go in there because I'm not a resident
yeah,
of that town. Mm-hmm. Can we do that there in any way? I mean, that's on the ocean, and they can do it.
Yeah, I don't know the difference. I mean, the only thing that I know about Lake Quinsigamond is it's a great pond and it's controlled by the Commonwealth, and there is Commonwealth access points and town access points, but
Wouldn't that be a good idea to look into?
I wouldn't necessarily have a problem with that. I can say this, that we can't limit access out of the state boat ramps. That's basically, like Kevin said,
So Flint Pond is a state boat ramp?
the Flint Pond ramp is a state boat ramp, and the state owns on the west side of the boat ramp, and they own probably, I'm going to say, 100 feet or so into the east side. There's a stone wall, and then the rest of it's Shrewsbury Parkland. So you could regulate that part of it under the, Shrewsbury could say that you have to be a resident to be there.
Yeah.
But it's basically right now it's walking trails. It's beautiful. If you ever get a chance to go down there, it's a nice little. It's short. It's a short little hike around the island, but it's beautiful.
So you have a lake management plan?
Oh yeah.
What's
Yep.
that?
It's in a couple of sectors, I guess. One is the big one is invasive weed management. So we're dealing with that, and we have 9 invasives in the pond now, and we have permits to cover all kinds of different tools. We have all kinds of different treatments we can put on there. A new one this year, the state allowed us to do a pilot program because we have a very rare invasive, a very rare plant in the lake. It's endangered, so we can't treat it with any chemicals because they don't want to harm that plant. And all the chemicals that were available before to treat the plants that we wanted to treat would be harmful to this plant called Vasii. So there was another chemical that came out that supposedly did not do it, and the state Natural Heritage allowed us to do a pilot program at Half Moon Cove to treat this.
Where's Half Moon Cove?
Half Moon Cove is if you're down on Route 20. It's kind of diagonally across from the Sears Plaza. The Sears Plaza is where the Half Moon Cafe is, and there's a Shrewsbury Market. The Edgemere Market, I think, is down there.
Okay.
So it's kind of down in that neighborhood. So it's just west of Edgemere. And if you're driving up Edgemere Boulevard and you look over to the left, that's Half Moon.
That's it.
In there. Very nice cove, filled with milfoil. I mean, it was as bad as Newton Pond. Those two
Really?
areas were very, very dense. And we went in, and it also has this rare plant in it. And we went in there, we did the surveys, and we applied this chemical called Procyllicor. And Procyllicor is unique because it doesn't attack the outside of the plant. It actually gets in the plant and kills it at the root. So the good thing about that is it basically takes out the population, so it doesn't come back. The other chemicals that just attack the top of it, the plant's going to grow back the next year. So we're very excited about this. They used it at Indian Lake. Indian Lake doesn't have a rare, but they do have other types of potamogitans, which is what this family of plant is, in Indian Lake, and it didn't harm any of those. So it did that. We just made that application now. We're going back this week or coming up next week to do the survey to see if the other ones are still there, and that'll be good. And we'll do it again next year. So
Okay. Now, special permits restrict the public access for regattas, for Wormtown Chase, whatever that is.
that's a regatta.
It is another
That's
one.
the
Okay.
fall.
And then there was something else, something about snake.
The snake race is also in the fall. In the springtime, they race from the 290 bridge, which is everyone's familiar with this. They have the course set up. They race from the 290 bridge basically to the Route 9 bridge. I think it's a 2,000-meter course is what the crew course is. In the fall, they race either the entire length of the lake, or they race on the south side of it, past the south of the Route 9 bridge. So they'll go around. They call it the snake because you're going around the island
Okay.
at the other side of it.
So when they do this, there's restriction
Yes.
on the lake. How do you regulate it so that there's not too many events that impacts the boaters, but yet there are events that are very exciting and people are happy to watch and so forth? How do you find the balance to that? Because the 3 ones that I just named off are October 9th, 16th, and 10th? or
Right.
9th?
There's a race this year that's basically Columbus Day weekend.
Yeah. Oh, so it's the whole weekend?
Yeah, it's a couple. It's a couple. I think it's Saturday.
So that means if I had a boat, I can't go on the lake? Or just certain times a day?
No, you can't. The only regulation you have, the residents can go on the lake, anyone that lives there, they closed the ramp.
Oh,
They closed
okay.
they closed the ramp, so we kind of keep that traffic down, and then we have a no wake zone wherever the course is. Okay, in the springtime it's a little bit easier to regulate because the course is in that 290 to Route 9 thing. Even there, though, residents we keep a lane open on the east side of it, the Shrewsbury side of it, so the residents have a path to go at no wake in between the runs, in between the heats, and the residents are very cool about it. They're, for the most part, but you do get some pushback when you have a race on a holiday weekend, because it's happened on Memorial Day as well. And we try to discourage that. This year, we looked at it, and because of last year, they had no tournaments at all. And I believe that the regattas, although I have to go no wake too, I'm not above the rules here, but I think the regattas are a very important part of Lake Msba. It's very legacy history thing.
Yeah. So now, jet ski rentals, has that been taken care of, or are those cowboys still coming in and renting jet skis?
Okay, so we did, and I got a shout out to the law enforcement people, to the folks, especially the folks on the lakes, Sean Valieri, Kyle Amato, and Tim. This year, because they've done a fantastic job, they did bag these guys. And, it wasn't so much that they were renting the jet skis, although that's against our rules because you have to have a permission from us to do it. But they also were unregistered. There was no supervision there. There was, it's not a good thing.
Yeah. And also there was, I don't know if is violence the right word? There were people that were on their smaller boats being swamped, or they were attempting to swamp them. There were young girls that were being stalked. All the issues that came to one of your meetings this summer, which people were very upset and
Yes.
bothered by. Has that been taken care of?
It's, interestingly, after that weekend, we failed to have any of those problems. Part of that was because of law enforcement. Part of that was because of the weather. It got slowed down, then we had no wake zones, and then that kind of went off. But the law enforcement, what they did do is they went to the ramps, they got the jet skis before they came on. Anyone who wasn't registered, the trailers weren't registered, anything that was out of place, they didn't have the whistle, whatever, they didn't get on the lake. That was good. And then they've done a way better job patrolling things. And that was a tough situation that happened. The little girl being harassed, that was beyond the pale. And
Disgusting.
That was the worst thing I heard that night, to tell you
Yeah.
the truth. The other confrontations, were not good. But in that particular case, it was kind of a big misunderstanding that someone thought they were being attacked when, and the jet skier admitted that he was actually not attacking anyone. He was just being a bonehead and didn't see him. He was speeding. He was breaking the rules. He owned up to all of that. He just said, I didn't do it, with intention.
Right.
Okay. So.
All right. So Worcester Police, Shrewsbury Police, and the Environmental Police.
Yeah, we had a task force this year with Worcester Environmental and Shrewsbury. Shrewsbury, I will say, has been taking the brunt of it. The environmental police have done a great job. Worcester's been out when they can. Their boat broke down. There's a lot of things about
But Worcester's been more present this year than
Yes.
previous years. So
that. Everybody has.
real progress. Do you have any questions for the manager, because you only have a couple seconds?
No, I don't think I can say to the manager is thanks so much, because he's been a big supporter, and he's behind us, and we don't get everything we want, but we get.
No one does.
Yeah,
No one
exactly. So I feel that we're fortunate. We're fortunate.
Well,
to
thank
have
you
it.
for coming in here.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, we'll have to find another time for the boat. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.